As you know, I'm not big on traditional holidays. I think they're more geared for the fact of making the rich richer, and Hallmark and other places. So I want to talk just a little bit this morning on a little bit about Easter Sunday. A lot of Christian churches today are celebrating Easter, and you will see things like chocolate eggs and bunnies and those kind of things, which has nothing to do with anything to do with Jesus and the resurrection, but it seems to be a part of celebrating Easter. I don't want to get too much into this history because I have some things to say. It turns out that Easter actually began with pagan festival. And that's the thing that bothers me. If these people knew what they were doing today, it came from pagan ceremonies and festivals that have a fit if you use the word pagan. And yet they adopt many of the pre-Christian festivals and celebrations into the Christian tradition that did not start with Christianity, but started long before Christianity. Since prehistoric times, people have celebrated the equinox and the solstice of the sacred times. The spring equinox is a day in which the amount of dark and light are exactly identical. So you can tell that you're emerging from winter into the daylight, and the dark has come back into balance. So what a great opportunity today to bring this idea that Easter could represent to us a time of balance, of bringing together the inner and outer part of ourself, the shadow and the light of ourself, and that we can become and feel that wholeness that is our inheritance today. Following the advent of Christianity, the Easter period became associated with the resurrection of Christ. In this first couple of centuries after Jesus' life, feast days of the new Christian church were attached to old pagan festivals, says Professor Cusack. Spring festivals with the theme of new life and relief from the cold of winter became connected explicitly with Jesus having conquered the death by being resurrected after the crucifixion. In 325 AD, the first major church council, the Council of Nicaea, determined that Easter should fall on the Sunday following the first full moon after the spring equinox. That is why the date moves and why Easter festivals are often referred to as movable feasts. In other words, it's not the same day every year. It moves. There's a defined period between March 25th and April 25th in which Easter Sunday must fall, and that's determined by the movement of the planets and the sun. Now, these are things that most Christian churches don't accept. They're not into astrology. They're not into planets. They're not into pagan holidays, and yet they've adapted it into the Christian tradition without even realizing and understanding the origin, because they don't teach origins of anything. They don't teach the origin of the Bible. They just say if the Bible said it, it's true, but they never studied the Bible and where all that came from. If they did, it would change everything completely. In most countries in Europe, the name Easter is derived from the Jewish festival of the Passover. In the Greek, it is called the Pascha. In Italy, it is the Pasqua. In Danish, it is the Paschi. In French, it is Pasqua. But in English-speaking countries, in Germany, Easter, it takes its name from the pagan goddess of the Anglo-Saxon English, who is described in a book by the 8th century English monk Bede. Austria, or Astir, was a goddess of spring, of renewal, and that's why her feast is attached to the equinox. So actually, they don't understand that the word Easter came from a sex goddess. They don't want to know that. But that's where the name Easter actually comes from. Eggs as a symbol of new life became a common people's explanation of the resurrection. After the chill of winter months, nature was coming back to life again. Oh, there's so much here. I'm not going to get into all of it, but it is, you get the idea that when you look at the origin of most of these holidays, you will get a completely different experience with where these holidays come from and how they are being used. Many spiritualists intuitively feel that God has no religion. So people ask all the time, what's the difference in being religious and being spiritual? Well, this is one of the characteristics of being a spiritual person, is realizing that God was not religious. And that God was not Christian. And Jesus was not Christian. He didn't come here to show us the Christian church. He came here to show us the Christ in himself. Amen. And then from showing the Christ in himself, he says, I'm the way to the Christ in you. I'm the way, the truth, and the life. And if you will listen to my teachings, don't worship me, listen to my teachings. That's what they don't do. They don't listen to the teachings of Jesus because they're too busy worshiping the body of Jesus. Which sounds good, but actually it stops us from really hearing what was the teachings that Jesus brought to the earth 2,000 years ago. What did Jesus teach? New Thought mystic Emmett Fox summed it up on the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus explains to us what the nature of God is and what our nature is. Tells us that the meaning of life and of death, shows us why we make mistakes and what we can do about these mistakes and how we can correct them. Not be punished for them, but how that we can misuse our willpower sometimes to not be in alignment with the higher spiritual principles or divine law that is within us, and how that we can find a way to heal and to change these things. That's what he taught us. He taught us technique. Yeah. Whatever you pray in my name, it shall be done. And the word prayer there in the Aramaic language that Jesus spoke was technique, method, or way. When you learn my methods that I've learned and you shall learn, then the works that I do you shall do also. Yeah. Fox warned about relying upon the dated doctrines, creeds, and dogmas of today's religions as explanations for Christ's experience. He writes, Jesus taught no theology whatsoever. His teaching is entirely spiritual or metaphysical. Wow. When we are liberated from the bonds of theology, spiritualists are free to meditate upon the experience, the metaphysical meaning of the Christ. And at Easter, they can also meditate upon the metaphysical meaning of the crucifixion and the resurrection. So let me say this to you, that the Bible is kind of clear that we must believe in the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. That is the doctrine of the Bible. And it does say that literally. So let's look at these for just a moment. What is the death? Not the death of a man 2,000 years ago, but what does that death mean to us today? The crucifixion is the dying out, the undoing of what? The ego mind. That's what was crucified. Christ wasn't crucified, but Jesus came to the end of his process in which everything he had been taught from the outside of himself, because he had a culture, he had a gender, he lived in a political atmosphere, just like we all do today. In 2023, he also lived in a time in which the outer world was trying to form him into their image and likeness. They wanted him to be like them, just like they want you to be like them. Yeah, they want to mold you into a Democrat or a Republican or a Christian or a this or that. Anything that's a label that is separate from other labels, they want to form you into that. And the process of Jesus and the story of Jesus was his undoing of everything that they tried to form him to be, until he peeled back every label that society, culture, and the religion of his time had put on him, until he stood in the authenticity of who he truly was, the Christ. And that's what he wants us to do. He wants us to let go, crucify everything that the world has taught you you are, that you have not been created to be. That's the death. That's the crucifixion. The burial represents a time of being put in the tomb, in the grave. In the grave. Let me give you a definition of grave. The word grave, as translated out of the Bible, means remembrance. The root word it comes from means to recall to mind, also mental grasp or to remember, or means, look at this, to recover all that is stored in the memory of the Christ mind. Get that? The grave is the realm of lost truth. The realm of God. That's where we go into a non-enlightened state of darkness or shadow. And then they come along and put the stone to try to keep you in there. They want to keep you stoned. Say, okay. Some of you 60s people, I can get it. But when the stone was rolled away, that which had been put into the dark stage and forgotten emerged into the power of resurrection or enlightenment. Resurrection comes from the Greek word anastasis, meaning to stand up again, rise to life again, and recover the recovery of spiritual truth. I've always been fascinated with a scripture in Revelations 20:4 and 6, but it says, "Blessed are those who are a part of the first resurrection." First is an interesting word, which in Greek is protos, P-R-O-T-O-S. Now you might connect with that word in the word prototype. Protos. The first is the making of a prototype. What is a prototype? A prototype is the making of something that can be the model of everything else. Will come along and read the model and become that. And this is what I've said to you many times. It concerns me with a lot of spiritual metaphysical people who don't really have a good prototype in their consciousness. A archetype, if you please. Ability to see themselves than other than who they believe they are. In other words, I needed to see someone who attained what I'm trying to attain. I need a prototype. And I found that for me in the deeper teachings of Yeshua the Christ. Now, I didn't find it on the literal level, but I found it in the depths of the teaching by looking beneath and beyond the symbolisms and the letter of the law to find the life of the Spirit behind all of the way in which he communicated, which was mostly through metaphor and through parable.
Right, yes.
Most of the Bible is written in metaphor and parable. And there was a sower, and there was a merchant, and there was a fisherman, and there was all these things. That's not what he was trying to say, but what he's trying to say, he put into what the people could understand.
Yes.
And he said, you do not at this time, 2,000 years ago, have the ears to really hear what I want to say, but I want you to get this. He said, a time shall come and shall be shown plainly of the Father to you. This is the opening of all of those prototypes in some way or another. So John 5, 28 and 29, marvel not at this, the hour is coming in which all that are in the grave shall hear the voice of God. How many people do you know that's in the grave? The dark shadow aspects of themselves, unenlightened to who they truly are. Unenlightened to the success of creation itself. And they shall come forth. Now, this is interesting. This is the part sometimes we don't like when we look at it literally. They have those who have done good unto the resurrection of life, and those that have done evil unto the resurrection of damnation. Now, the word we don't like there, I bet, is damnation. Because we don't see that kind of a God, our creator, that damns the people. But again, you've got to go deeper and research it and find out the word that's been translated damnation should be condemnation. What is condemnation? Condemnation is the moment you know that you're out of alignment. And everybody knows it. When you do something that is not in alignment with your highest good and for your spiritual purpose, you will have within you a moment in which there's an opportunity to rethink that and change that and correct that. So don't do away with condemnation, because condemnation is my navigator that navigates me and keeps me on the path. I want to know when I'm off the path. I want to know that I'm not using my energy and my life purpose to fulfill the purpose in which I've incarnated. I need something in me to say, wait a minute, it's time to stop and rethink. Choose again, the chorus says. Choose again. So remember, the word grave comes from the word remembrance, to call to mind. Remember, resurrection comes from the Greek word that means the recovery of spiritual truth. First resurrection, what does that mean? The first resurrection is a code word that means first fruits. First fruits. If you have a harvest, if you're planting crop, every planter is waiting to see the first fruits of what he has planted to show up. And when that happens, he knows the others are coming. That's good English, a coming. They're on their way. Now, today language, we call that the critical mass, 100th monkey, which means when enough has shown up, then the rest has a prototype for where they can also join in the harvest. That's why it's important that there be enough. In metaphysical circles such as here, of course, we could not compare ourselves to, say, those who have gathered this morning in Elevation, which are probably thousands of people across the country and the world today that ended up to this church here in town that is huge with thousands of members and whatever. If we compared ourselves to this small little group, it would seem so insignificant. But you got to understand, what I'm beholding here is the first fruits. The first fruits. Oh yes, they will come, because that's universal promise that all things that came out of God will go through God and return back into God. Eventually, everyone will come to the fruition of their authentic self.
Yes.
But the Bible is clear to say that doesn't happen all at once. It happens with every man, woman, according to their order. You're here because your number came up. Oh yeah, your number come up and you said yes. See, all are called, but few are chosen. Or what that means is all are called, but very few chose it. You chose it. You chose to take and be misunderstood by your family. You chose to be misunderstood by your race, culture. You chose to have live in a world that doesn't understand you and doesn't understand the level of your language and where you're coming from today. You chose that. You are the chosen. But I want to encourage you today and say that I'm talking to the first fruits of the harvest. And when enough of us get our act together. Now, how many here who doesn't know about the 100th monkey? I guess everybody does. I don't have to repeat it. Okay, the 100th monkey was a research that was done in Japan with Japanese and had to do with a series of species of monkeys that loved sweet potatoes. And they threw the sweet potatoes out to them, and of course they threw it on the ground and in the sand, and the grit got into the sweet potatoes. And one little female monkey said, "Enough of this. I'm tired. I like this sweet potato, but I don't like all this grit and dirt and gravel." So it came into her mind, I'm going to go down there and wash this sweet potato. And she went down and washed the potato. Well, monkey see, monkey do. So they started coming and washing the potato, sweet potato. But what was cool about the research is the same species of monkeys on another island, totally separate, began to do the same thing because enough did it that it began to ripple through the collective consciousness of the species, and the species begin to follow. And that's what's going to happen. I don't care how bad it looks out there. I know it looks like everybody's going to hell in a handbasket, but that's not what's getting ready to happen. There's getting ready to be an awakening like you have never seen, and instead of us criticizing them and judging them, we need to stand up for them. Somebody help me. I may just preach a little bit here because it reminds me of how the place that Israel was not allowed to go in. It was behind the veil into the most holy place. They could not go in there, but it was the most holy place where the presence, where the blood of the sacrifice was taken. Atonement took place. But the people could not go there, but the high priest. So once a year, the high priest only would go in there. But here's what the high priest did that was fantastic. He built a breastplate and put in that breastplate a beautiful stone that represented all the 12 tribes of Israel. All the 2 million or so Israelites that were represented at that time was represented in the breastplate and the heart of the high priest. And therefore, he took them with him into that place, and they all received the benefit of total atonement. Quit worrying about trying to convert your family. And instead, put them in your heart and bring them here. There's a better way. So what I'm trying to say to you is sometimes it's not the quantity, it's the quality. We're enough. Not just at HeartLight, but all over the world. There are small communities just as this that is meeting all over the world. And now through such things as the internet, if we'd use the internet properly and grow up and realize that it can be a very spiritual tool to connect us. Right now I'm connecting to people in Australia, England, and all over because of my ability to now use the computer through podcasts to connect all these people that I would have never seen probably in person. Hello. I'm closing here in just a minute. Jesus, this is from Course in Miracles, but I love it. Jesus being the man who first awoke from the dream of separation, seeing the face of Christ and all his brothers and sisters who remembered the face of God. That is the greatest challenge that myself and you have. Yes, we're pretty good with knowledge. Yes, we've read the books. Yes, we've been to the workshops. Yes, we got the language down. We can hold a pretty enlightened conversation. That's true. But until we become spiritually minded enough that we can see the face of Christ in every man and woman, we have not attained our spirituality. We can even now say, I'm spiritual, not religious. Be careful that that doesn't become a label. And one more thing from A Course in Miracles that I really like is called the collective resurrection. When all the thinking of the world is reversed entirely and love is no longer feared but gladly welcomed, idols will have disappeared and the remembrance of God will shine unimpeded across the world. And we shall see Christ's face in every living thing, and the joy of heaven will come at last.
Yes.
The prayer today, Spirit, allow me to become so one with the mind of the divine in me that I can see your face in all people, places, and things. I don't know that I'm totally there because I get knocked out consciously by some of the stuff that's going on right now. It's a challenge, but it's not impossible. So this is what I want to give us today, is let us by this time next year that we are together on this day called Easter, that we are able to truly say, I've had the experience of seeing beyond the realm of illusion, of separation, and behold the face of Christ in all things in my life and all people. Now, I'm not against. Probably the last tradition of Easter that I still hold on to is dressing. I got to have my white coat on Easter. Sandra's got to have her hat on Easter. But that's about all that's left that I got to deal with. But I want to see Easter as the raising of my vibratory frequency in to be one with the frequency of the I am that I am. I am all that I have been created to be. So that's just some food for thought about Easter. And you that are going to leave here and go to family dinners and hunt Easter eggs and stuff, just go and enjoy it and let your light shine. Let your light shine. So good to see you. What's his name? Cutie. Yeah, we've been missing you. Yes, thank you so much for coming and being here this morning. We really appreciate it. And I want to say Kathleen's book is just amazing. And I and Tim are going to become one of her clients. I am so impressed. We need this here. I mean, to have this drop down into this community with this kind of experience and passion. I don't know about you, but I'm worn out. I'm worn out looking out there. I'm tired. I'm tired of psychotherapy. I'm tired of dealing with all these different things I've dealt with and money that I've spent and getting no result out of it. I need something that comes from the heart of the Spirit and from the wisdom of the heart. So I feel blessed, and I know that you're going to be blessed as she continues to share with us this wonderful gift that she is so willing to share with us here at HeartLight. Thank you so much. What am I missing?
Offering.
Oh, offering. Okay, offering. Can I read one more thing? Because I was going to do this as an inspiration, which I gave to Kathleen to do, but I want to give it to you. It's a prophecy out of the book of Isaiah. On this mountain, good, you can play a little something for me. On this mountain, on this level of consciousness, this high state, God will remove the mourning veil covering all people, and the shroud in wrappings of all nations. Hear that? Russia, Iran, America,
Yeah.
Africa,
Yes.
and all the nations that are in uproar today. You have the promise that God will remove the shroud and the wrappings of all nations and will destroy death forever. Will wipe away the tears from every cheek and take away people's shame everywhere on earth. Breathe. Breathe. I take this in as a divine promise that works with the divine law in me to bring forth this vision. I'm going to read it one more time, and I want you to drop out of your head into the feeling of your heart. On this mountain, Spirit will remove the mourning veil covering all peoples, the shroud in wrappings of all nations. He will destroy death forever. The Lord will wipe away the tears from every cheek and take away the people's shame everywhere on earth. Say with me, and so it is. And so it is. You can say it better than that. And so it is. Third time's a charm. And so it is.